We heard yesterday from the education critic that there were some trustees that wanted to oppose the government and what they're doing in terms of education. But it occurred to me that maybe there's some trustees that are on your side but also for different reasons don't want to speak out, whether it's media protocols or just because maybe teachers would organize against them in the next school board election. But do you think that there's some teachers that trustees that are silent because of different pressures that they feel, the ones that we heard about yesterday?
Well, I mean, obviously, I've met most of the trustees in the province. I haven't met every single one, but I think I said this yesterday or the day before, right? I mean, we've got 240 some trustees in the province. All from all sides of the political spectrum, if you will, from all perspectives. So, I can't speak to, individual pressures that trustees may face in their communities or their subdivisions of a school division. But, again, certainly what the opportunity that we've had to work with school boards and the SSBA over the last couple of weeks on this multi-year funding agreement, certainly I felt there was strong support out there for the multi-year funding agreement. And, heard that since from several trustees that I bumped into at SARM or around the city or around the province. So,
what kind of public feedback are you getting? We know you've got 100,000 calls from people supporting teachers. Are you getting any calls from people supporting yours?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, when we look at the multi-year funding agreement, I think, I've certainly heard from, from numerous parents out there that, hey, $356 million for classroom supports over the next 4 years. I mean, that's not insignificant, right? And again, there'll be budget process discussions every year, but I think there's an acknowledgement that this is a significant investment. And
yes,
so.
But I think most would agree. But why not take it to the binding arbitration? Though I don't get the logic that you're at a deadlock, no one wants to go to the bargaining table, you guys don't seem to want to go to the bargaining table, you say teachers don't seem to want to go to the bargaining table. That seems prime to a prime situation to go to binding arbitration.
Yeah, so I just say a couple things on that. I mean, number one, binding arbitration would deal with items, in the provincial collectively bargained agreement. We've been clear that these issues, class size and complexity, are not issues related to the CBA, and then the other piece too is, and I've said this multiple times this week. I mean, there's an offer on the table from government addressing several other asks from the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation leadership, but we haven't had an adequate opportunity to discuss those. And so on those issues, I mean, I don't think we're at the point where binding arbitration would be appropriate. And we talk a lot about the path back to the bargaining table. I think what we heard from STF leadership is that they wanted a written commitment that these funds were going to be there for years out into the future. We've made that written commitment. That is the path back.
Yeah, so once again, I want to go back to your first piece. Are you concerned, because you sound like you're a little bit concerned, that binding arbitration might basically lock this in, which you say you're okay with. You say that the long-term funding would be there. So I guess once again, why would that be a concern in terms of what binding arbitration would accomplish? Because it's what you set out here you want to do.
Yeah, so I mean, as I'll be clear again, I mean, the issues of class size and complexity, from government's perspective and trustee and, the school boards around the province and trustees around the province, these issues, in our perspective, don't belong at the bargaining table, and they don't belong at binding arbitration. We've worked to address these issues because yes, it's the multi-year funding agreement that we signed.
Absolutely. So, like when you're dealing with a situation where you guys seem to be talking the same language, you want a long-term commitment to this solution. Yeah. It seems that by moving to binding arbitration, they're obviously not going to get necessarily everything they want. So why is this not an out? I guess I'm trying to understand. You're deadlocked anyway. Your complaint is that they're not negotiating. Seems to be sort of an open door to moving things forward if you would agree to the notion that, they might rule that it might be in the contract. Are you that determined not to have it in the contract that you basically...
Yeah, government and trustees are united that these issues don't belong in the contract. I mean, even,
Is that why you're not going to binding arbitration?
Correct. Yeah, and so it doesn't belong in the contract. It doesn't belong at binding arbitration. I think back, even the anonymous trustee that spoke up to the leader post earlier this week. Even they, in that piece, even they at the end of the article admit that putting it in a provincial contract. Well, but it was in the newspaper, right? That it was that even that anonymous trustee. It was in the newspaper. I'm quoting what was in your publication. So, even that anonymous trustee said that putting these issues into a provincial contract would affect local school divisions' ability to manage them.
Yeah, I know, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a situation where this seems to be your route, and it seems logical moving forward that if the only opportunity that you have, and the teachers seem to be moving on binding arbitration, is in order to get this resolved, is to have it within the contract, or have perhaps the possibility that an arbitrator might rule that might be the best solution. You seem to be reluctant to take the chance of that happening, and that seems to be maybe a little bit obstinate, maybe a little bit difficult, because that, obviously negotiations, as you said, are give and take. Why would they not?
Again, the path forward, the way out, in your words, has been, in our view, is the commitment to, say, a significant increase in school operating funding and the multi-year funding agreement, putting that in writing, that that funding for classroom supports is going to be at a minimum of $356.6 million over the next 4 years. That's something that the STF leadership asked for, and we delivered on that written agreement last week.
Sounds great. So why would you not take the chance that the binding arbitrator might say the same thing and say, yeah, that's good. I like what the government's doing. Let's just put it in the contract.
Yeah. I know we're gonna probably have to agree to disagree on this, but for government and trustees, the issues of class size complexity are not appropriate for the bargaining table, and not appropriate for binding arbitration as well.
I just don't understand the logic. I truly don't. If you want a resolution to this, and if you want kids back in the classroom, which you've repeatedly said, and everybody
absolutely,
does,
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
that's fair-minded enough.
Yeah.
Wouldn't this be the best path at this point, or what am I missing here?
Well, you're missing, I guess, the fact that government and trustees. We've heard loud and clear from boards around the province that this is not class size complexity. Putting that in a provincial contract, it's not in the best interest of students and families, and that ultimately is very important. And I think it also affects the ability of local divisions to respond to the diverse needs of communities all around the province.
Why is that again? Because I just don't understand if you're willing to put it into another form that wouldn't be something in the best interest of students and families. You obviously see it as the best interest outside the contract.
Yep.
And you are actually willing to put forward other things. The question is whether that kind of contract is binding. It all comes down to the word binding. Because a binding arbitrator would force you to do that. And it sounds a little bit like you just don't want to be bound.
Well, I think we have an agreement that binds us with school boards over the next 4 years to have that minimum level of classroom supports funding, and again, a commitment from myself and this government that we're going to work with school divisions to address those issues in their communities. But again, putting it in a provincial agreement, I don't think it's good for communities like take La Loche, for example. I don't think it's because it's not going to allow school divisions to be responsive to local need. And again, I don't need to explain to this group or to folks in this province that we've got a large range of communities in our province. I mean, at SARM this week, you're talking to smaller communities, and then I meet often with the 4 large urban divisions as well. There's quite a range. So
are we thinking maybe that there will be some circumstances where, let's say, there's an area they can't infill when a teacher gets sick, and so you have a classroom that day that's over the limit, and now you could have a grievance filed, and there's a whole process. Is it that kind of scenario that the school boards are wanting to avoid?
Well, I think school boards, at the end of the day, they understand their school communities best. I think I know that our school boards in the province have spoken directly with former school board members from BC, and I know BC gets referenced often by the STF leadership, and again, there's been some reports from BC that it does create significant challenges around, families being able to access different schools, a significant number of grievances being filed by the union out there. So again, I think school divisions school divisions want to find ways to support students and teachers, but again, they need to have that autonomy to do that in their local school communities.
Are there any other jurisdictions besides BC where you've maybe heard from governments or heard indirectly, this did not work out, don't let it get in because you might not be able to get rid of it later? What kind of things do you...
Yeah, I mean, BC is the jurisdiction I know our trustees have spoken with the most. Obviously, school board trustees, have opportunities to interact with counterparts across the country. So I can't speak to every conversation that trustees in Saskatchewan have had with trustees from other jurisdictions, but certainly just referencing the conversations that some of our trustees have had with folks from BC.
Just with binding arbitration, why are you so not willing to take any leeway, no risk there? The STF is coming forward and they're willing to accept what the arbitrator comes forward. So why are you willing just to offer some leeway?
Well, again, I'll give you the same answer I gave your colleague just a minute ago. I mean, again, these issues around class size complexity, we've been firm on that these issues don't belong at the bargaining table. They don't belong at binding arbitration. You've seen this government make significant commitments to address these issues directly with school divisions, which are, at the end of the day, the employer and the operators of our schools around the province. Again, when it comes to a path forward, we have a path forward. It's, there was an ask to commit to these dollars, to additional dollars, and to commit to dollars long term. We've done that. We've made that agreement with school boards around the province, all 27 school boards around the province. I mean, in terms of path forward, we've been sending weekly invitations to the STF leadership to bargain every week. We've made our team available. We've got a break week coming up in the school calendar. It could be a great opportunity for, while teachers and students are out of the classroom, for the Teachers Bargaining Committee to spend a week in a bargaining room with our bargaining committee and try and get a deal done. Obviously, if the Teachers Bargaining Committee is ready to go before then, we'd be happy to. I mean, that weekly invitation goes out every single week. We want to get a deal done.
How do you feel though about not taking this opportunity to stop job action and essentially have kids, go back and enjoy sports, enjoy their classrooms? So how do you feel about not taking this opportunity?
Well, I think I've been working to provide opportunities for the STF to find a path forward, and they haven't taken the opportunities that I've presented, right? With additional funding, with pilot programs, with the multi-year funding commitment. That is, I really do believe that is the path forward. We've committed to additional dollars. We've committed to those dollars being at least consistent at a minimum level over the next 4 years. Again, the decision for different job action or different job sanctions, that's solely the decision of the STF leadership. And again, I understand their members gave them that mandate, but I mean, these actions do affect kids and families around the province. And government's been working earnestly to provide a path forward, and I think we've done that. So, again, the invitation's always there.
So you keep saying that classroom complexity doesn't belong in a collective agreement.
Yep.
STF leadership has said that thousands of teachers have said that it does need to be. Why isn't the province budging or listening to those teachers that I guess might know better?
Yeah, I think we've, certainly, I personally have had the opportunity to speak with many teachers around the province, and certainly in my home community as well. We've heard that concerns, but at the end of the day, we've also heard from teachers, from school board trustees that, in order to manage the education system, these types of issues don't belong in a provincially collective bargain agreement. I don't expect to agree with everybody. That's not my personal expectation, but again, listening to the folks that are locally elected in their communities to represent those communities on a school board and make important decisions around how schools look all around the province. Certainly, I've got a high degree of trust in what they tell me, and and again, certainly appreciate the feedback that we've received from teachers and parents and school board members around the province.
Why are you afraid of arbitration?
Well, I think that's the reality is we've only bargained for half an hour in 5 months, so it's binding arbitration on the issues that we've put forward. We haven't really even had an opportunity to negotiate the salary increase that we've offered for teachers out there. I mean, there's a deal on the table right now from government that represents a significant salary increase for teachers around the province. We'd love to be at the bargaining table discussing that salary increase and how that's a good thing for teachers in all parts of the province. But certainly, how can you even talk about binding arbitration when there's only been half an hour of bargaining in 5 months? I don't think, I think I've said it in the House, I've said it out here, I'll say it again. I think the people of the province, deserve an earnest effort from both sides on this. I think that's what families expect. That's what our students deserve. That's what even teachers expect and deserve around the province. And so certainly, I've been clear on what we believe does and doesn't belong at the bargaining table and does and doesn't belong going to binding arbitration. But, again, the offer that we have on the table with a good salary increase for teachers, we'd love to get back to the bargaining table to discuss that.
Where does classroom size and complexity sit? Anywhere. You're saying you guys won't enter anything. How can the STF seek any recourse? There's no place for them to negotiate. You're putting a wall in front of them. You're inhibiting them from trying to negotiate something that's affecting them. You're shutting them out.
Well, I think what we've done, though, if you look at it, we've made a commitment, and I mean, I've been out here numerous times over the last several months that acknowledging that, these issues around complexity and certainly size in some of our schools around the province, these are real issues. I've acknowledged that. I've seen that. I've toured schools around the province, and I said we want to work on these issues. But they don't belong in a collectively bargained agreement. They belong working with school divisions. The STF asked for that commitment to be in writing. We gave that to them. And, that's really the path forward on this. And, it's the commitment has been made by government, and, it's time for both sides to be at the bargaining table.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Sam would